Thank you for welcoming me onto your screens or onto your headphones, depending on how you're watching this. I'm Eddie, and this is the Rollback. Folks, today I'm here to talk to you about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, aka Black Panthers? I don't really have a joke for this one. It's maybe a little more somber than most of my other reviews. I don't have a lot of jokes to say because this film comes obviously off the back of the death of one Chadwick Boseman, who is missed. And they had an incredible feat on their hands. Everyone from director Coogler to the cast, the crew, everyone had a monumental task of trying to move forward. I said it, I don't know if I said it in private. I think I said it on a podcast maybe once or twice. After the death of Chadwick Boseman, obviously after condolences to his family and his loved ones, I really didn't know how they should move forward. Kevin Feige. I understood that there was an argument to recast the character because of how important it is. And I understand that there was an argument that Chadwick Boseman made the character his own. How can you recast it? And quite frankly, I don't have an opinion going one way or the other. I just knew it would be tough. And that was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And since then, I genuinely did not know how the direction they were going to go in this film. And I'm happy to say they went right, in my opinion at least. So real quick, just a bare bones version of the synopsis. Queen Momonda and Shiri, which I'm sorry if I butcher any pronunciations, I will do my best, I promise. But in the wake of the death of King T'Challa, world powers are trying to intervene with Wakanda to try and gain power. They're trying to protect their kingdom, and then a new threat emerges in the name of Namor. So the cast, and again, I apologize if I butcher anyone's pronunciation, but I will do my best. So real quick from the get-go, there's not enough time in this review for me to talk about all the great things that this film did. If you want to catch that review, you'd have to go and watch or go and listen to our podcast review that should be coming out. Should have came out yesterday or today, we'll see. That said though, first and foremost, this film is a monument to the fact that it was even made in the first place, considering, again, the passing. But nonetheless, they chugged on, they moved forward, and this film is, maybe it's too easy to call it a triumph, but I do think it is a beautiful film that was made in part in grief and in part in a tribute, but also trying to tell a brand new story of this family. And I texted that actually to Chema when I saw it. This film reminds me of a family epic almost on par, or if not on par, with The Godfather. The story of a family moving forward, trying to lead, be proper, struggling with grief, struggling with guilt. The opening scene itself is Shuri trying to recreate the plan to try and save T'Challa's life. In his last moments, she's not there with him. She's trying to save him. And from that comes, she feels guilt. She feels guilt that she wasn't able to save him. She even holds it against the elders, why would I be so smart, yet I can't save my brother, the one person I wanted to save? And I love that. I love the fact that these are siblings that don't hate each other, that don't constantly fight. They love each other, and all they want to do is protect each other. You don't see that often enough in films, so you can tell that they had a very special relationship both in film and out. This film, Shuri is forced to grow up in so many unfair ways. Again, her father was assassinated, her brother was taken from her, and over the course of the film, her mother is taken. So she's orphaned with no siblings to grieve with, trying to stand on her own while also trying to stand between this, frankly, they refer to him as the serpent feather god, and trying to protect her country, her nation, Wakanda. And she plays the role beautifully. Conflicted, tortured, guilt-ridden, having to commit to her sense of duty. There's even a great part where she actually does meet with Killmonger. Obviously, this is after she eats the fruit, but Killmonger even calls her out and says, do you want to be honorable like your brother, or do you want to get shit done like me? And the choice is there, and you understand. Even if you don't want Shuri to go down that dark road, you understand why she might. Where's her brother? Where's her family? They're gone. And then there was Namor, the one with, the one that cannot be loved. I don't remember the exact translation, but Namor is a complicated character if I've ever seen one. There was a meme that was shared on Facebook that showed Killmonger and Namor as being the two of the best villains in the MCU, and I find that hard to argue. Now, you can make the argument that Namor isn't a villain; he's more of an anti-hero, which is fair. But also, it's insane. Um, this character's motivation, how well he was written, how well he was acted, the liberties he was allowed to take as far as his strength, his speed, his stamina, able to be a legitimate threat. Even at one point, and it's an offhanded remark that everyone notices, he might be as strong as the Hulk, and he is, I think, canonically the first mutant. So Namor, he's just trying to protect his people. The main issue is that after Wakanda came out to the world and said, "Hey, vibranium," the world is looking for vibranium because Wakanda will not trade for it because they recognize how dangerous it could be, justifiably so. But with the world looking, they come closer and closer to finding Namor's world, where they have lived peacefully for about 500 years, if I'm not mistaken. But he ages very slow. He's been their king the entire time. But nonetheless, Namor is just trying to protect his people, the same way T'Challa was in his film. Simply saying like this kingdom needs to be peaceful, or I will deal with any threat that comes near us. Again, it's understandable. There's no fault in that. And Namor, he does try to act peacefully. He says, "Look, just give me the one scientist that can find my spot. I'll put him down, and we call it a day. No war." And then everything goes south because Riri Williams, they're not going to surrender her. They're not going to hand her over. Maybe they might have, but Syria wasn't going to let that happen. In addition to that, though, also Riri Williams, I want to just based on her introduction in the comics is very controversial. I love her introduction here. It felt a lot more organic, a lot more. It made sense. She was introduced in somewhat of an organic fashion. This kid genius that can build. Not like we've never seen that before, right? Like, and I mean that in a good way. That's not a shot down. It means no, it makes sense. She's brilliant. Hell, we might even see a crossover with her and Spider-Man at some point. She is going to MIT, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's trying to go to MIT or Columbia. I don't remember. But nonetheless, I like this. I like the direction that we're going with these characters. The story feels grand. The story feels huge. It feels like a war epic. And I want to be very clear. I don't mean as in a war that will encapsulate the planet, but a war between two kingdoms trying to survive. And in that, we still have more family conflict. Suri dealing with her mother and the different ways that they grieve and try to move forward and the guilt that she feels, versus Namor, the loss of his mother and how he's just trying to do right by his people. There's family conflict written throughout this film. And not just family by blood, but also different forms of philosophy. Even at one point, it's called out like, "I'm trying to avoid war because if we kill Namor, do you not think his people will come and fight?" They think he's a god. They don't call him general. They don't call him king. They call him a god. What do you think is going to happen if we kill him? If we can kill him? Ultimately, over the course of the film, Siri does become a more mature and benevolent queen, a ruler, a leader to her nation, while Namor becomes a wiser king. They end up forming an alliance, even in their grief. Siri is able to forgive Namor and ultimately forgive herself. Even though personally I don't think she had anything to forgive. It wasn't your fault, kid. You didn't do anything wrong. But nonetheless, she's able to let go of her guilt and move forward. But in an interesting turn, she does not become the ruler of Wakanda. She ends up going to Haiti, where she meets her nephew, the son of T'Challa, which that's a long-term investment if I've ever seen one. There's going to be a Black Panther film in about 25 years. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that we have to stop with Shuri being Black Panther. I'm saying that when that kid comes up, it's going to be huge. But nonetheless, this film did so much, juggled so much. I also believe it's the longest non-Avengers film in the MCU, which good on you. This film couldn't have been done in any other way. Probably could have been a miniseries, but it wouldn't have felt as grandiose. So I'm glad it wasn't. That said, though, this film, I mean, I typically like to give cons, but I can't really think of any, or it would feel inappropriate in this instance. I'm just glad we got a great story, a story that paid respect to a man that was worthy of respect. Um, if you're wondering my grade for this film, it's an A. The initial Black Panther was in my top 10 MCU films of all time because of the world it created and the topics it discussed. You know, real world issues when it comes to racism or how we deal with systemic inequality. Versus this film that deals with more personal senses of grief, and they did it beautifully. That said, yeah, again, I'm sorry for the lack of jokes. It's just this one feels a little more somber. But that said, please like and subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate it. We're always trying to grow this channel. I've been Eddie, and this was The Rollback. We'll see everybody.